What's up everyone, this is Tranquil Toys. Today I'm taking a look at these two new figures from Powertown Wrestling, and these figures are of Stan Hansen and Bruiser Brody. These are two old school wrestling legends from the 70s and 80s. They've influenced the wrestling world a lot, and even today there's a lot of modern wrestlers that borrow or are influenced by these guys here. And I'm a pretty big fan of the old school wrestling from the 70s, 80s, early 90s. There's a lot of good characters, a lot of good moves. Everything felt bigger back then, and it just felt more real. And a lot of the wrestlers were really tough guys, and that showed in the ring and outside of the ring. And on top of that, these two wrestlers here, they also wrestled in Japan, and they had a lot of good matches over there. They had a good run over there. They were a tag team. They also had a singles run, each of them. And so I was excited when Powertown Wrestling revealed that they were making these figures. The Powertown is a new company. They started like a year and a half ago, and these figures are from the first wave of figures that they've produced. So like I said, when the first images came out, I was excited that figures were being made of these characters. So I had to get them. I pre-ordered them. These were about $45 to $50. I'm not really sure how much it was. So we're going to see if they were worth that price. So first of all, I'm going to take a look at the detail and the sculpt of the figures and its accessories. Then we'll take a look at the articulation, and then finish it off with some size comparisons and head swaps. Actually, the first thing I want to show is the packaging for the figures. Normally I don't show the boxes, but I thought these boxes came out pretty cool. So you can see they're kind of big. So there's the front of the box with a picture of the hand-painted prototype of the figure, which does look better than the finally released figure. And you get another shot of the figure there. The other figures in the wave, they had a pretty good selection, but I don't think the other characters were as interesting as these two guys, so I did not pick those up. Another picture of the figure, and then more pictures. It does have a flap that you can open. It does give you a pretty lengthy bio on the character, and then it has the window here where you can display the figure like this with it open like that. So that's awesome that they designed the package like that, and the same goes for Stan Hansen, of course. So there's a painted prototype of Stan Hansen. It could also be a 3D render of the figure. That's probably more likely what it is. And on the front, the flap opens, and you get some pictures of Stan Hansen there. And there he is, tag team with Bruiser Brody. And so that's pretty cool that they included all those things. It does kind of increase the quality of the figure, which is nice. So now let's get into the actual figures. I'm going to start with Stan Hansen.
For the last number of years, I've been forced to go out into the third world and wrestle when the statutes of limitations finally ran out, and I'm back here. Nobody can deny me. Nobody can deny me. I'm hungry.
We got a signature cowboy hat, signature vest with the skull and crossbones on it, and the SH for Stan Hansen. He's also got his cowboy pants, again with the crossbones and the SH. He's also got textured tassels, and actually the entire pants and vest are textured with a leather texture. And there's how the pants attach. There's a hole for this strap to attach to, but it's not very secure. So it's kind of the first negative thing that I'm going to point out. But you see the other straps right here, and this is a very stretchy material, so it does go relatively easily over the legs. Although you have to use some force, and you got to be careful not to break anything. And there's also texture detail on his boots, which are painted with a gloss black. And you kind of see that leather texture that is on both. And you have the trunks, which are a matte black, with the elbow pad, which is a very soft rubber. You got his horns hand, which is a signature pose that he does. So it's cool that they included that. And then the hat is removable. And the hat does have the hair textured, or like an impression of the hair, so that it fits more snug. But it doesn't really help because it still falls off pretty easy. It's not really snug on the head. And the hair sculpt is nice. It's painted in a darker brown with a lighter brown on top, which is pretty good. The mustache is nice and full. The eyebrow is done pretty well. The eyes are kind of that old school style of painting figures. It's not that new printing technology that figures are using now. It's that old school hand painted kind of look. But it's done pretty well. And the title is also really nice. It's really shiny plastic. And the way that it snaps, it just has these two pegs that go into any of these holes, so you can put it on pretty much any character. And it also comes with a cowbell. It does have weathering and wrinkles on it, like it's been beaten up. A rope, which is a real fabric rope, and here I tied it so it can go around the cowbell. And you got to be careful of the rope too, because it will begin to fray if you mess with it too much. Then here's his extra hand for his right hand. So overall, very good sculpt and paint. All the details there, and it's done pretty nice. So now we'll take a look at Bruiser Brody.
Bruiser Brody has just appeared on the scene, as it is quite obvious.
But let me tell you one thing you forgot, Mulligan. And you better remember it before you climb in that ring in the Omni. You can bet your last nickel I'm going to get up. Because I always got up when I got beat up before. And when I get up, I'm going to get you. And you know what I mean when I say get you? I'll get him.
Let's know.
Get him.
Now taking a look at Bruiser Brody, starting with the head sculpt. He does have his signature blood streaks on his forehead. It's kind of unfortunate. He didn't always have that. I mean, he did have scars on his forehead from the matches and probably blading during his matches. I'm not entirely sure if he did that or not, but the scars are, realistic to what he looked like in real life. But I would have wished that they weren't painted so red like that. Maybe if it was a more subtle red or a little bit more pink. But it really sticks out, and he honestly didn't always look like that. So I would have wished maybe an alternate head sculpt or something, or I might try removing the red paint there. For what it is, the head sculpt is done very well. The beard texture and the hair texture is also very, very well done. It's realistic. It looks like the way that his hair did in real life. He went through several different changes with his hair, but the look that this is replicating, it did a very good job replicating the way he looked at the time. And the texturing on the animal skin vest is also very well textured all throughout. And he's got the regular black trunks with a matte finish. Soft rubber knee pad, which flexes, very flexible, as well as his elbow pad with the open front. Very flexible, doesn't hinder articulation at all. Then we get down to the boots, the calf skin boots. The cow skin or the calf skin on the boots, it should stick out a bit more so it looks like an actual, like skin is wrapped around the boot. So they kind of missed the mark there, I think. And also for both of these figures, the feet are really small. Like if you just consider how big this guy was in real life, the feet are way too small. It does come with a metal chain, and I believe this is real metal. So that's cool. It's pretty long. It's taller than the figure, about 1.5 inches taller than the figure. He also comes with a piece of wood, which also has sculpted detail all throughout. So that's cool. He also comes with another hand. Now this is for one of his signature poses, but he can't really replicate the pose because of the articulation. I'll get into that later. But the paint is pretty good. It kind of misses the mark here on the palm of the hand. Then he also comes with a tag team belt. I'm not sure what promotion this is from. I'm not familiar with the promotion, and I can't really read anything on the belt, but same as the one that Stan Hansen came with. So overall, the sculpt, the detail is really good. It's all there. Everything that you want is all there. Now, where we get into some of the problems is the articulation. Now, this is where that price really comes into question. Are these figures really worth $45 or $50? Other wrestling figures that are worth that are like the Mattel's Ultimate Edition or AEW Supreme Collection, which those have a lot of accessories, a lot of hands, alternate heads, upgraded articulation compared to the regular figures. So first off, the head looks about that far down, which is good. He can look straight down, bury his chin into his chest, which is good. He's not going to look up that much. If he's looking at someone up on the top rope, I guess that's fine. And of course it does swivel and very minimal tilt. Now, one thing that you cannot do with these figures straight out of the box is take the heads off. So I went ahead, I heated up the head, took it off. I cut around the inside of the head to enlarge the socket so that I can make it removable so we can do head swaps and stuff like that later. But that's one thing that you have to be aware of. Straight out of the box, you cannot remove the head. You have to modify it a little bit to be able to do that. The shoulders, they go up that far. Not too bad. That's pretty much what you'd expect. And then they swivel. Okay, now we get into one of the other problems that I was going to mention. The hands are pretty loose. I think this hand is worse than this one. This one's not as bad, but it does come off when you're messing with the figure, playing with it, articulating it. So that's really unfortunate. These hands are not very snug on the figure. Back to the articulation. You get swivel, single elbow. Now again, $45 to $50 and a single elbow. I don't know about that. I don't know about that. And the hand articulation is really weird. This is kind of like a really old way of doing hand articulation. I don't know if that's what they were trying to do, if they really thought this was a good way to go about this. I don't think it's a good way. And again, the hand is very loose, keeps coming off. But there's a disc hinge, so that gets you that far. He can pretty much break his wrist right there. And then you can go the other way, break his wrist the other way. And then this is a ball joint, which is pretty much worthless. You get very little range out of that, not enough to really do anything. But it does swivel on that ball. Like, you can only put his hand in awkward poses that are kind of inhumane, and you can't really get that much posability out of it. So that's a huge mistake in my opinion. And then on the other hand, the disc hinges the same way. Now the torso articulation, now here's where the figure takes a big negative, big fat minus. So he's got a ball joint going from the chest to the abdomen, and from the abdomen to the waist. And it doesn't really give a whole lot of range. So there's a lot of figures cheaper than this that you get way more range out of. And same thing for the side to side. Really limited in the articulation there. And then the swivel is very stiff as well. And the swivel also works for the upper torso articulation, but it just looks kind of weird. It really breaks up the sculpt, and it's not doing the figure any favors. So, I mean, they could have engineered this way better. It could be, because this is their first time making figures, but they could have just borrowed from some of the other wrestling figures that are way better than this in terms of articulation. There's nothing wrong with copying another company. Those other companies aren't going to give us characters like this, so you might as well just make it just like the other figures. But they didn't do that for some reason. And the legs are also pretty limited. He's not going to be doing any big boots. It does go back about that far and go forward that much and out that much. And then single knees, again, $45 to $50. Single knees, single elbows. What's going on? The knee pads are nice and rubbery, and they do have open in the back, so that doesn't hinder the articulation at all. Top of the boot swivels, so that's good. Ankles hinge down, forward. Good amount, as much as you're going to need for standing poses and stuff like that. And then it does rotate left to right on that, so that's pretty good. Again, the feet are kind of small, and they're not 100% flat on the bottom, so it is sometimes a little difficult to get them to stand. So that's the articulation. Pretty disappointing, honestly. And the same thing goes for this figure. This figure is a little bit taller, but everything is the same. You know, the single elbows, single knee, the boot rotation, the legs. Now, one thing that is kind of different is that you can actually bring Bruiser Brody's legs together. I guess they sculpted it different. I think they sculpted the waist piece different than Stan Hansen, so he can put his legs together, so that's one difference. And there's the next problem that I was going to mention in a second. His boots come off really easily. They made a mistake in the engineering. Now we'll get into how the accessories fit on the figure. So you got the cowbell, and here we get into another problem. So that's the only way he's going to hold the cowbell. He doesn't come with any grip hands. I guess you could put it around his neck or something, or you could wrap it around his arm like that. So he doesn't come with any grip hands to hold the accessories that he comes with, the only alternate hand that it comes with. So this must be a grip hand, but I mean, it's not really a grip hand. He's still not gripping the accessory. He's not gripping the rope. So again, another pretty big mistake. Like, just copy what's worked before for other figures, for other companies, for things that, you know, we actually like. And another problem is that you can't really fix this, because here's an AEW hand that doesn't work. You can't do that. So that's really disappointing that they decided to do that. He also can't hold his title, put him around him like that, or put it around his waist, you know, whatever. And the same thing goes for Bruiser Brody. He does have this sort of like a grip hand, and he kind of holds the weapon, but it's not a grip hand. Like, that's not how you make a grip hand. A grip hand looks more like this. That's what a grip hand, this can actually hold an accessory. This can't hold anything. It's more like a scratching hand, like he's gonna scratch somebody, not hold the freaking weapon. And the chain, you can wrap the chain around his hand. So I mean that's kind of cool, I guess. You can. So okay, that's pretty cool. I think that works out pretty well. That's pretty cool. And then he also comes with his pose hand. Now, the pose that he does with this hand, it's kind of a weird pose, and it's hard to do. It would be hard to do with any action figure, but you can't even get close at all with this figure, with the articulation setup. You can't even get near it at all. So it's nice that they included it, but you can't even do the pose. So what's the point? I mean, I guess it's a chopping hand for chops, for slapping, for chopping, maybe for something else. I don't know. So a lot of negatives. Pretty disappointing in my opinion. Like, I didn't expect these figures to be that bad. So now we'll get into some size comparisons. So here's the Supreme Collection Kenny from AEW. He's a lot smaller. That's something else about these figures, is that they look really big next to other wrestling figures, which I guess might be true. I mean, I'm not sure how tall Stan Hansen is, but I guess he is bigger than Kenny. That doesn't make sense to me. And he's wider than Kenny. That also makes, you know, a little bit of sense to me. Back in the day, wrestlers used to be bigger, you know, wider, bulkier. Now there's a different kind of body type that wrestlers have now. So I guess that kind of demonstrates that. But still, they should be a little bit closer in scale with each other, because this just looks kind of ridiculous. But in terms of articulation, like, look how much you can get with that. Going back and then going forward. Like, that's what they should have been going for than, you know, than the way they did it. Here's how they look next to Hogan. Stan is about the same as Hogan, but Bruiser Brody's taller. That's pretty accurate. Still, Stan Hansen's wider than Hogan. They were probably maybe about the same size, or a lot closer to the same size than in figure form. And here they are next to Vader. So this is pretty cool having these two together. You know, Stan Hansen, Vader, the famous match where Vader's eye popped out because he got punched in the face by Stan Hansen. Here's another old classic from the same era, Harley Race. And he looks tiny next to Stan Hansen. And then for some other comparisons with figures from other lines, here's Marvel Legends Iron Man. So he looks really tiny next to them. Here they are next to He-Man, which is in the 7-inch scale. So they're a lot closer. And here they are next to custom McFarlane figure, the Barbarian Batman that I reviewed a couple of videos ago. Here they are next to a Kotobukiya model kit. So now quickly, let's do some head swaps. So I guess if you wanted to do a Mattel conversion custom or something, if you wanted to make Stan Hansen in the Mattel, or if you want to make Bruiser Brody in a Mattel form, like I said, you got to heat up the heads and make the hole bigger so you can do head swaps. So that's kind of what that looks like. It doesn't really sit down on the neck any lower than that. You'd have to make the hole bigger, but that's kind of, I guess it's not too bad. It needs a lot of work though. So I guess that's one plus about these figures. Maybe you could do some head swaps and, you know, try to make the body a little bit better. And they're way too big for an AEW figure. And also way too big for a regular Mattel Elite figure. Here's the Braun Strowman head on the Stan Hansen body. Doesn't look too bad, but I don't know why you'd want to put another head on this when the articulation sucks. But if you wanted to make some He-Man customs, there's the Bruiser Brody on the He-Man body. That's actually pretty cool. That's probably the best thing to come out of this. And this is probably my favorite head swap so far. You know, I just wish he didn't have all that blood on his forehead, but... So guys, that's the end of the review. I really have to leave right now. But final thoughts, you know, these figures are not good, not worth the price. Articulation sucks. Some of the QC is really bad. The paint and detail is pretty good. It's pretty much all you're paying for here. And the accessories. The accessories are good, but it doesn't come with enough hands to actually do anything. Can't really do any poses with the articulation that they give you. And just some really dumb decisions that they made with these figures. Again, really disappointing. I really like these characters. Pretty much that's what you're paying for, is the characters themselves, not really for the figure. So if you guys really like these characters and you want them in your collection, you're going to have to pay $45 to $50. That's pretty much the only reason why I think anyone would want to buy these, is just for the characters that have that character in your collection. But anyways, guys, I really have to go. That's all I got to say. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I'll see you in the next one.